W5ICX. I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
To begin tonight's Skynet. All right, the bearer approves. Let's see. This is Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-ray. My name is Tom, and I'll be your net control for this session of DARC Skynet. Ruff, ruff. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation and comments and suggestions for this net. Patients with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the # sign, break on your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? Please come now. Rough, rough. It is a directed net, so please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency, which is 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check and see Echolink are also possible using the W5FZ R station ID or Echolink note 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for a complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. all amateur operators are welcome. You need to be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. Rough 1, general announcements. Rough 2, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. Rough 3, National Space Society events. Rough 4, discussion topic of the evening. 5, what you can see in the sky tonight. Rough 6, a featured constellation. Rough 7, recent astronomical discoveries. Rough 8, space exploration and space history. Rough 9, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. Rough 10, astronomical Q&A. And 11, the 73 round. And for those who may be interested, if you go and Google, United Launch Alliance is launching out on the West Coast a Delta IV Heavy, which is launching a super secret satellite. Not so secret we don't know about the launch. This is the big boy out at Vandenberg Air Force Base. You may want to watch this. They don't launch a lot of these, which means could be interesting. You decide what interesting means, but it's pretty cool. There's continuous feed right now, 1 hour and 2 minutes before the launch. Low power short time check-ins now. If you'd like to join us this evening and cannot stay, this would be a perfect opportunity. Please come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from. Please come now. The braking station, if you could increase power, and if anybody can give me a relay on them, that would be great. The repeater's having some problems thanks to all the wonderful weather we've had today. That braking station, try again. Give me your call sign twice. I'm going to turn this thing up to 11 and see if I can hear you. Go ahead. I may need a relay. I got Kilo Golf 5, and that was it. Anybody else pick him up, and if that station wants to try one more time, I'll try. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to chalk you up for being here. One more time on that station. That's okay. Don't be depressed. This has happened to me many times. I'll take general check-ins now. Anybody like to join us, please come with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. Please come now. Let me back up right now. It sounds like the repeater's having some major problems this evening, at least on receiving. If everybody could increase your power a bit more than what you normally do, because right now I cannot hear anybody, and I don't think it's me. Not yet, at least. Of course, I always think it's me, but not tonight. If you checked in on the previous net, you know about this, go ahead. Everybody else, if you can increase power just a little bit, because I am not hearing anybody. Please come now. I will give extra time for check-ins this evening.
This is NTAV, November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving.
This is Kilowatt Golf 5 Papa, KG5P, Mike and Richardson.
Mike. Tony, in Dallas.
Kilo Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn in Louisville.
Farmers Branch.
November, Charlie, 5, Papa, Doug in Dallas.
I'm going to break these up a little bit. Let's see here. N5BB, Bill and Irving, I got you about a 7. KG5P, Mike and Richardson, I got you about a 7. James in Carrollton, I got Kilo Golf 5 and I lost you. A lot of noise. If you can increase power just a bit, I'd appreciate it. James, give me your full call sign again, please.
Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James.
Hey, very good. It's not you, it's us. Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey November Lima, James in Carrollton. Tony, NT5TM, I'll give you an 8 in Dallas. KC50ZT, Miss Carolyn in Louisville. I think you said you were at 75 watts. You sound good, about an 8. KG5WZZ, Bob, I could barely make you out. I'm sure I got your call sign wrong. If you can bump up power just a little bit, I'd appreciate it. Give me your full call sign again and location.
Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Zulu Zulu, Bob in North Dallas.
Excellent. You went to full quieting on that. I don't know what you did, but it worked well. November, Charlie 5, Papa, Doug in Dallas. You have a good signal, about a 9. I'll take additional check-ins. Please come now.
Yes. Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Denny DeSoto.
Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch. Alpha Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert Richardson.
All right, let me stop there. I took the call and I realized that's not a valid call because I didn't write it down right. Doug, I got the November Charlie 5 call. Doug, would you give me your full call again, please?
November, Charlie, 5, Papa. It's just 1P, NC5P in Dallas.
Hey, cool deal. I didn't realize that was legit. Okay, I got you down. No foul, no harm, no foul. Whiskey Bravo 50ZL, Brenda and DeSoto, I've got you. May want to bump up power a little bit for the later net. KF5ZBL, Mr. Bill, Farmers Branch, I got you. Next station I got is Robert in Richardson. I got a Papa Alpha Hotel. Robert, you fill me in, please.
Yeah, it's Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, AA5AH, Robert.
Great, you got a good signal. Alpha Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert and Richardson. I'll take additional check-ins. Please come now. one station there, I know everybody's discouraged because the signals are so poor. I got Kilo Golf 5, and I've got Mike question mark Victor. I think that's Mark. Mark, give me your full call sign again, twice please, if you don't mind, and I'll get you on the list. Hey, I think I've got Kilo Golf 5, Mike, Juliet, Victor, Mark, and Grapevine. Did I get any of that correct, Mark? Kilo Golf 5, and okay, let me try one more time. Kilo Delta 5, Mike, Juliet, Victor, Mark, and I think you said Plano. Did I get a little closer this time? Got it perfect. All right, excellent. Thanks very much. Okay, I'm going to give everybody a rest. I'm going to go over to Echolink. Echolink, if you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from. Echolink only.
This is November 5, Yankee, Echo, Oscar, Stephen, San Antonio, getting dry.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy, and Sherman.
Kilo India 5, Charlie Echo Uniform, Sean Benton.
You may want to power from what's normal if you've checked in on this net. We're having some communication interference. Please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from. I scared you all off this evening. Okay, that's all right. Let's go ahead and go to general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? They could be of ham, astronomical space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come now. Professor 5, Hey, NT5TM, Tony, you're going to pump up power a little bit. You're about 80% noise. Go ahead. Well, I put transmitters. Is this better? Yes, it is. Go ahead. We can read you now. right, thank you, Tony. Appreciate the information. I'm going to repeat for the Echolink folks, anybody who couldn't hear him. Audio was really low, better signal, but very low audio. Don't forget that Tuesday night is the annual winter dinner. The Dallas Amateur Radio Club has a winter dinner. You can find additional information about that at the w5fc.org website. And don't forget Winter Field Day, which is also documented. It's up today. All about what we'll be doing on January 26th. So check there. We'll be partnering with a couple of other clubs for Winter Field Day. Find that information at the w5fc.org website for additional information and contact stuff. Okay, very good. Let's see here. Let me tell you about the Afterglow Movie Net this evening. Hopefully the signal will get a little better. I don't know if there's water or just conditions are causing some of the issues this evening. It's just been a lot of noise this evening. So hopefully you aren't discouraged and you'll stick with us tonight for the nets. All the net controls, hopefully you'll get power up high enough so you can be heard. Let's see, tonight's Afterglow info is as follows. Peter Stenning was the newspaper beat British reporter who got all the lousy assignments. This week alone he covered the annual Dead Cat Convention, reviewed the new Mimes musical at the Terry Thomas Theater for the Performing Arts, and the final stall, interviewing a famous actor who had been dead for over 3 years. Tough assignments all. My life sucks, he shouted as he made a hard right turn into the local pub. Clark Kent, Britt Reed, and Charles Foster Kane were already there, drinking their careers away. It sure was hot today, he thought. No matter. At least he wouldn't be alone this particular day. Join us for the next Afterglow movie, the day the Earth caught fire, tonight at 10:30 p.m. I got to tell you, this one's going on my top 10 list of science fiction films. I'd never heard of it until just a couple of weeks ago, and I do like it. So even if you didn't see the movie, you might want to just find out what it's all about. That's the Afterglow movie at 10:30, the day the Earth caught fire. Let's go ahead and see if there are anybody on the Astronomical Society of Dallas events where and when you can look through a telescope. Obviously not tonight. Anybody on frequency who would like to discuss TAS, please come down. Hey, just to let you know, the Texas Astronomical Society has monthly meetings. December is not one of them, starting in January. They have a meeting at 7:30 p.m. at the Science Learning Center, or SLC, on the campus of the University of Texas at Dallas and Richardson. You can find out additional information about Texas Astronomical Society at astro.org. Go there. You'll find all sorts of information, including what the meeting speaker will be, as well as weekly star parties that are available and open to the public. You don't have to be a member of the TAS to do that. You can look through a number of different interesting telescopes, and if you're in the market for looking for a telescope, perhaps this is a great place, too, to find out more. Go to texasastro.org if you want to find out where the star party is on any given night, whether it's still going on. Not tonight, but you can go there, texasastro.org, click on the calendar, and you'll find that information. Hey, let me go ahead and take additional check-ins. Anybody like to join us this evening? You may have to bump up power a little bit because we have poor reception. If you'd like to join us this evening over here, please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Echo India Uniform, David, Soggy St. Paul.
I got those two. I've got Kilo Golf 5 Echo India Uniform David in St. Paul. Your signal's good. You're probably further away than most. David, what's your output right now, watt-wise?
Yeah, Tom, running, let's see here, 20 watts on the 991A Diamond X50 here in the backyard. KG5 EIU.
Hey, excellent. Anybody hear that? You may want to bump up your power if you can. He's at 20 watts, and I am at, what did I say, 30 watts, and I'm on the same radio, the FT991A. Alpha Echo 1 Echo. You sound like an antenna that was in a 2001 A Space Odyssey. Can I get your name, please? And by the way, you have a perfect signal.
Alpha Echo 1 Echo, this is Ken, and this is an ST60 indoors, so in Dallas. I'm surprised it's coming to you at all.
You have the best signal so far this evening, and it's challenging. It's nobody's fault. You have full quieting this evening, so you must be standing next at the repeater site. Perfect signal. Okay, let's see here. Let me go ahead and continue. National Space Society events and activities. Bill, N5BB, what do you have for us, if anything, this evening from the National Space Society?
This is BB. I have no news right now. Sorry about that. It's BB.
Number and things slow down, so that's okay. Give me a second here for the stream. I forgot to set this up. Let's see. Give me a couple of seconds here. Okay, there we go. I'm doing 10 things at once. Let's see. Tonight's topic, and I'm going to go ahead and make this a regular feature when I'm net control, and has to do with the Apollo 50th anniversary. It is now. It started, in fact, in November last month, having to do with the Apollo 7 first manned flight. Of course, the Apollo program had begun kind of unofficially in 1961, sort of. We were talking about boosters and what we were going to do. But in any case, when the President Kennedy decided to go ahead and send us to the moon, that would be our next project, the Apollo program was created and conceived, preceded by the Gemini program, which is where we learned a lot about how to rendezvous in space, which would be one of the primary needs for the Apollo program, which was going to the moon. During this time, there was a flurry of activity going on, and that had to do with the preparations for the Apollo missions. The Apollo 7 mission was an 11-day mission was very successful. You can visit and see the command module that was launched into Earth orbit for that 11-day mission at the Frontiers of Flight Museum here in Dallas. However, that was just the beginning. During December of 1968, preparations were made both for 3 additional missions, Apollo 8, Apollo 9, and Apollo 10. These missions transitioned from the Saturn 1B, a smaller launch vehicle, 2-stage, to the 3-stage and much more massive Apollo Saturn V. So in December, during Christmas of December of 1968, the Apollo 8 mission flew. There's also some other activities on 9 and 10. So tonight, what I would like to do is go ahead and discuss some of the things that occurred during these missions, or were planned for these missions. This is KE-5ICX. So with NASA now firmly committed to sending Apollo 8 into lunar orbit in December of 1968, preparations for that mission accelerated. Work was also underway for the next 2 missions, Apollo 9 and 10, planned for the first half of 1969. If all went according to plan, Apollo 8 would fly the first crew on a Saturn V and test the Saturn Command and Service Modules, or CSM, in lunar orbit. Apollo 9 would test the CSM and Lunar Module, or LM, in Earth orbit, and Apollo 10, in a dress rehearsal for the first landing, would test the CSM and LM in lunar orbit. Optimism surged that President Kennedy's goal of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth before the end of the decade could be met. In preparation for the planned December 21st launch of Apollo, engineers completed its Flight Readiness Test, or FRT, on November 19th. Since the Saturn V rollout to Kennedy Space Center, Launch Complex 39A, in October, technicians were putting the rocket through numerous tests. The FRT was the first final major overall test of the vehicle systems. The prime crew of Frank Borman, James Lovell, and William Anders, as well as the backup crew of Neil A. Armstrong, Ed Buzz Aldrin, and Fred Hayes, participated in portions of the test. The Apollo 8 crews were also spending considerable time in the CM mission simulator to rehearse various aspects of their flight. Countdown demonstration would be held about 2 weeks before launch. The hardware for Apollo 9 mission were already at Kennedy Space Center, where technicians were conducting tests. In the vehicle assembly building, workers in October had stacked the 3 stages of the Saturn V. The LM had arrived from its manufacturer, the Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation in Bethpage, New York, in June, and the manufacturer of the CSM, North American Rockwell, in Downey, California, delivered those modules in October. In KSC's Manned Spacecraft Operations Building, the prime crew of James McDivitt, Russell Schweikart, and David Scott, as well as the backup crews of Charles Pete Conrad, Alan Bean, and Richard Gordon, completed suited altitude chamber runs in mid-November. On November 30th, workers at the MSOB, or the Manned Spacecraft Operations Building, assembled the CSM and lunar module with the spacecraft's lunar module assembly, SLA, and transferred them to the AD 3 days later for stacking on the rocket. Crew members completed splashdown egress training in the Gulf of Mexico near Galveston, Texas, using a boilerplate Apollo CM in late November. The motorized vessel and the retriever provided logistical support for the training. I know, we need a program with all of these terms. The Apollo 10 mission was still 6 months away. Hardware was already arriving at KSC. Grumman delivered the lunar module in October and the North American Rockwell, the CM and SM, in late November. Workers at the Kennedy mated the 2 latter modules on November 26th and placed the assembly in a vacuum chamber for testing. First stage of the Saturn V arrived at the vertical assembly building. The and workers began the stacking process 3 days later. Awaiting the arrival of other stages in December, NASA had already announced the Apollo 10 prime crew as Tom Stafford, Gene Cernan, and John Young, and their backups as Gordon Cooper, Edgar Mitchell, and Don Isley. The big news was, of course, Apollo 8, and this is what they said. With Apollo 8, you are go for TLI. With those cryptic words spoken on December 21st, 1968, Mission Control gave the crew of Apollo 8 approval for TLI, translunar injection, permission to become the first humans to leave orbit, Earth orbit. Their destination, 234,000 miles away, was the moon. After Apollo 7 successfully flew the program's command service module in Earth orbit 2 months earlier, Lieutenant General Sam Thorne, NASA's Apollo program director, announced a bold new step. By going into lunar orbit, we will make an early flight demonstration of the design mission of Saturn V, the Apollo spacecraft, and understand its operations in translunar space. Apollo 8 commander Frank Borman was an Air Force colonel and test pilot, a member of the NASA's second group of astronauts. He was command pilot for Gemini 7 mission, December 4th through 18th, 1965. And I know Tony's got something on that later on. Command module pilot on Apollo 8 was Jim Lovell, a naval aviator and test pilot, also from the second astronaut group. He flew with Borman on Gemini 7 and commanded Gemini 12, November 11th through 15th in 1966. From the third astronaut class, Bill Anders was a major in the U.S. Air Force and jet fighter pilot. For Apollo 8, was designated the lunar module pilot, although there was no lunar module on this flight. Apollo 8 crew was the first to launch atop a powerful Saturn V rocket, lifting off from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. After liftoff, Kennedy's Chief of Operations, George Page, described processing and launch preparations as fantastic. By the way, we did have a launch from 39A just 2 days ago, resupply mission to the International Space Station on SpaceX. So for the launch, for TLI, 2 hours and 50 minutes after launch, the Saturn V third stage fired, propelling the spacecraft at 25,000 miles per hour. Crews traveling faster than man has ever flown before, NASA Public Affairs Paul Heaney said. You know that guy's voice. Now on a trajectory to the moon, they separated their Apollo spacecraft from the Saturn third stage and turned around and saw a striking view. A beautiful view of Florida now, level set. We can see Cape Canaveral just from the point. At the same time, you can see Africa. As Borman, Lovell, and Anders approached the moon early on Christmas Eve, Apollo 8 and Mission Control prepared for the vital firing of the spacecraft's service propulsion engine that will place them in lunar orbit. Sorry, I'm trying to do 10 things at once. Crucial maneuver would take place behind the moon while out of contact with Earth. As the crew was about to travel out of touch, spacecraft communicator Jerry Carr, a fellow astronaut, passed along reassuring words. Apollo 8 1 minute to LOS. LOS, he said. All systems are go. Safe journeys. Responded with see you on the other side. The SDS engine would have to fire a little over 4 minutes. All the flight controllers could do is wait. The people around the world watched and waited for 37 minutes and 32 seconds. And then data began streaming to consoles and mission control. Got it, Amy announced. Apollo 8 is now in lunar orbit. There was a cheer in the room. Carr asked, what does the old moon look like from 60 miles? A dirt beach with lots of footprints on it, Henders said. Over the next 20 hours, Apollo 8 orbited the moon 10 times at an altitude of about 60 miles. The crew took detailed images of the lunar surface that would help flight planners select landing sites for upcoming missions to land on the moon. The television broadcast seen by viewers around the world, the crew related what they were seeing. My own impression is that it's a vast, lonely, forbidding type existence or expanse of nothing that looks rather like clouds and clouds of permanent stone, Borman said. Lovell expressed similar thoughts. The vast loneliness up here of the moon is awe-inspiring, and it makes you realize just what you have back there on Earth, he said. The moon from here is a grand oasis and big vastness of space. During the final orbit, time came for a 3-minute, 23-second trans-Earth injection burn of the SPS engine to propel Apollo 8 to the trip home. It happened early in Christmas morning, and again, while mission control waited, and Apollo 8 was behind the moon. Please be informed there is a Santa Claus level, said, announcing the firing worked as planned. Before sunrise on December 27, 1968, Apollo 8 splashed down in the Pacific Ocean near the recovery aircraft carrier USS Yorktown. After Borman, Lovell, and Anders were safely aboard the ship, Dr. Thomas Paine, then acting NASA administrator, described the mission as a true pioneering effort, opening the way for greater achievements. Really on, the program of spaceflight will extend through many generations, he said. We're going forward to the days we'll be manning space stations, conducting lunar exploration, and blazing trails out to the planets. That's pretty much the case. We've done the space stations. We've gone to other planets. I think he was thinking of manned missions to other planets. But to be honest with you, we've had some really great missions that have come about that are unmanned, that have taken us to every planet in our solar system. That's pretty darn good. And possibility, even in our lifetime, I wondered if we were ever going to get to Mars, but maybe the private missions that are being considered may get us to Mars. I'm certainly hopeful. And a reminder, the Delta IV launch is in 24 minutes. You may want to catch it live. This should be pretty spectacular. The largest vehicle since the Saturn V, which we were talking about. Okay, let me continue. We have also from earthsky.org this evening. I'll go ahead and give the first part of this, what you can see in the sky tonight. You can also follow along over on the w5fc.org website, get all the information on these on tonight's net. And this is KE5ICX. I'm Net Control for tonight's Skynet. From the southwest, 1 hour before sunset, we have the following. Sunset on December 8th, 9th, and 10th, it'll be a challenge to spot Saturn near the young moon. Find an unobstructed horizon in the direction of sunset on these evenings and start the search no later than about a half hour after sunset. Both the moon and Saturn will quickly follow the Earth beneath the western horizon. Will you see them? Binoculars could come in handy. Around the world these next several evenings, Saturn sets about an hour and a half after the sun. The moon setting time will vary considerably depending on the date and your place on the globe. From everywhere worldwide, the moon will be easier to catch on December 9th than December 8th. It will be easier still on December 10th. That's because day by day and wider, yes, still very slender, waxing crescent moon will be higher up in the sky at sunset and will stay out longer later after sunset. That on December 9th and 10th, the illuminated portion of the moon was pointing towards Saturn. New moon was December 7th. And at 7:20 UTC time. Or around 1:20 a.m. Central Time. So as the sun sets over North America on December 8th, the moon will be over 1.5 days old, and that's a very young moon. There's a map they list. I have it linked as day and night map of Earth. It says take a look at the worldwide map depicting the day and night sides of Earth for December 8th at 7:20 UTC. The shadow line passing through Northeast Asia, Japan, and to the east, right of New Zealand, shows where it's sunset and where the moon is just 1 day old. Thus, for Asia and Australasia, it'll be tougher to see the moon on December 8th. Earth will keep spinning, though. The minutes will tick by. The moon will move eastward in its orbit, as it always does, putting distance between itself and the moon on the sky's dome and shifting more of its lighted half and day side to our direction. By the time sun arrives for the Americas on December 8th, the moon will be over 1/2 day older than at sunset on December 8th in Asia. That means the moon will be easier to see. Twice each day, the moon will move farther away from the setting sun on the sky's dome, to stay out longer after sundown. Full moon will come again on December 22nd. So the moon is due to wax in phase and become more prominent in our sky over the coming 2 days. 2 weeks. 2 weeks! Sorry, not 2 days. Saturn in the meantime is sinking closer to the glare of sunset day by day. One evening soon, you'll look for it, and it'll be gone behind the sun. So while the time is at hand, the young moon defines Saturn an hour or so after sunset on December 8th or 9th. Note that on December 10th, the illuminated portion of the moon will be pointing towards Saturn. So that, the bottom line is, use the young moon to find Saturn after sunset on December 8th or 9th. On December 10th, the illuminated portion of the moon will be pointing towards Saturn. All right, I'm going to go ahead and skip the U.S. Naval Observatory this evening. Voice gives out a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and go to Airline KC5OZT. You ready to tell us about our constellation this evening? The net is yours.
Thank you. This is KC5OZT, and tonight's constellation is Taurus the Bull, one of the 12 constellations of the zodiac. It's large and one of the oldest ones known. In Greek mythology, it was associated with Zeus, who transformed himself into a bull in order to get close to Europa and abduct her. Probably best known for the Pleiades, also known as the Seven Sisters, and the Hyades, the two nearest open star clusters to Earth. It's been known since the early Bronze Age, when it marked the sun's location during the spring equinox. In fact, depictions of the constellation and the Pleiades have even been found in a cave painting at Lascaux, France, dating back to 15,000 BC. Look at some of the major stars. Of course, the brightest one is Aldebaran, an orange classified giant at magnitude 0.75 to 0.95, 13th brightest star in the sky. Its name is Arabic for the follower because it appears to follow the Pleiades cluster. It's close enough to the ecliptic and sometimes can be occulted by the moon. And Beta, they're also known as L-Nath, second brightest star at 1.68, also lies near the ecliptic, and it can be occulted by the moon. And we get the Delta Tauri. Sort of a complicated. It consists of 3 star systems. And this is located in the Hyades. Delta 1 Eudora is a triple star system. Magnitude of 3.77. And then you have Delta 2 Tauri. It's a main sequence class A dwarf and magnitude 4.8. And then Delta 3 Tauri is another triple star system at magnitude 4.3. And the primary component, of course, is a subgiant Class A star with 2 companions. So at 1 star, you could let's see, that'd be what? At least 7 stars. And for size, 119 Tauri is one of the largest stars known. The diameter is 600 times that of the Sun, and one of the brightest stars known is Class M at magnitude 4.3. And we have a very interesting star combined with a deep sky object, T Tauri. It's a variable star, and it's faint at magnitude 10.27, but it's a prototype for a whole class of stars known as the T Tauri variables. These are pre-main sequence stars, less than 2 solar masses, and mainly class F, G, K, and M. They're much more luminous than main sequence stars that have the same mass because they're larger. They have a larger radii, and they're usually located near molecular clouds, and they are variables. Tauri itself is a star system consisting of at least 3 stars. Only one can be seen at optical wavelengths, while the other 2 are visible in infrared. And one of the stars is a source of radio waves. And the system is located near the Reflection Nebula, NGC 1555, known as Hines Variable Nebula, and it illuminates it. It causes the nebula itself to also exhibit variations in brightness. Moving on to deep sky objects. Now, the first one I want to cover is M1. It's known as the Crab Nebula. It's a 6 light-year wide expanding remnant of stars' supernova explosion. Japanese and Chinese astronomers recorded this event nearly 1,000 years ago in 1054, and also Native Americans recorded it. The orange filaments are the tattered remains of the star and consist of hydrogen. The rapidly spinning neutron star in the center of the nebula is a dynamo that powers the nebula's eerie interior bluish glow. The light comes from electron whirling at nearly the speed of light around magnetic field lines from the neutron star. This neutron star, like a lighthouse, ejects twin beams of radiation that seem to pulse 30 times a second due to the star's rotation. And of course, a neutron star is the dense core of the exploded star. The nebula derived its name from its appearance in a drawing made up by Irish astronomer Lord Ross in 1844. He was using a 36-inch telescope. The M1 was the first deep sky object linked to a historical supernova explosion. Its magnitude 8.4, so it's easily visible in amateur scope. And now we get to one of our favorites, the Pleiades, seven sisters, M45. Like I said, open star cluster. It consists mostly of hot, luminous big-class stars, most of which were formed in only the last 100 million years. And it is the best-known cluster in the sky and the easiest one to find. And it is a beautiful sight. You have to admit. The second open cluster is the Hyades. Like I said, it's an open cluster, hundreds of stars. And these all share the same motion through space, origin, age, and chemical content. It's the nearest open star cluster to the sun. The brightest stars in the cluster and Aldebaran, Alpha, form a V shape. Aldebaran isn't a member of the cluster, but just happens to lie along the same line of sight. The cluster was named after the Hyades, 5 daughters of the Titan Atlas, and half-sisters to the Pleiades. It's said when their brothers died, the sisters were transformed into a star cluster. And it was later associated with rain, and I guess because when it was in England, the cluster was sometimes known as the April rainers. And don't ask me why, but unless it happened to be during the rainy season. And now, the lesser-known objects are NGC 1409, that's the one to the right in the picture. 1410, that's to the left. They're a set of colliding galaxies. And they're connected, if you look, by a pipeline of gas being funneled from one galaxy to the other. And as a result, there is a lot of star-forming activity occurring. In 1410, it's on the receiving end. 1409, on the other hand, is devoid of young blue stars. And they're gravitationally bound, and they will eventually merge into one galaxy. Then we get to a nice planetary nebula, NGC 1514, known as the Crystal Ball Nebula. It's a large planetary at magnitude 9.4. It's believed to be surrounded by a close binary star with an orbital period of up to about 10 days. And then, I can't go into all these in details, but there are several other open clusters. NGC 1746, 1647, located between the bull's horns. 1817 and 1807. These are all between magnitude 6 and 7. So they make some nice objects to try to find. And Taurus is a favorite constellation, so take a cure through it. And unless there's any questions, Tom, I'll turn it back to you. J50ZT.
This is KE5ICX. Does anybody need any fills? The Delta 4 heavy lift, they don't fly these every day. 6 minutes before launch at Vandenberg Air Force Base. Secret satellite being launched. We'll see what happens. These things are, it's the largest rocket sans the Saturn V currently. This is KE5ICX. I'll take additional check-ins. Anybody who would like to join us this evening? Sounds like it's clearing. Well, it may be clearing up. You may want to bump up power a little bit so I can hear you this evening. We've had a lot of rain, and that has affected transmission. So if you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from. Please come now. Everybody off. Miss Brenda, WB5OZL, what do you have for us this evening? Please go ahead. This is KE5ICX.
WB5OZL, and I apologize, I'm having a computer problem. It's closed up. But I am stuck with one of the articles, and hopefully get the other one back up here too. This one is entitled NASA's Osiris-Rex spacecraft arrived at asteroid Bennu. NASA's origin, sexual interpretation, resource identification, security records explorer, and Osiris-Rex spacecraft completed its 1.2 billion mile journey to arrive at the astronaut Bennu on Monday. The spacecraft executed a maneuver that transitioned it from the flying towards Bennu to operating around the asteroid. Down about 11.8 miles, or 19 kilometers from Bennu's sun-facing surface, Osiris-Rex will begin a preliminary survey of the asteroid. The spacecraft will commence flyovers at Bennu's North Pole, equatorial region, and South Pole, getting its post nearly 4 miles above Bennu's flyover. The primary science goals of this survey are to refine estimates of Bennu's mass and spin rate and to generate a more precise model of its shape. The data will help determine potential sites for later sample collection. Osiris-Rex's mission will help scientists investigate how planets formed and how life began, as well as improve our understanding of asteroids that could impact Earth. Asteroids are remnants of the building blocks that form the planets and enable life. Those like Bennu contain natural resources such as water, organics, and metals. For future space exploration and economic development, may rely on asteroids for these materials. As explorers, we at NASA have never shied away from the most extreme challenges in the solar system. In our quest to with Laurie Gray, Acting Director of NASA's Planetary Science Division. Now we're right again working with our partners in the U.S. and Canada to accomplish the Herculean task of bringing back to Earth messages of the early solar system. The mission's navigation team will use the preliminary survey of Bennu to practice the delicate task of navigating around the asteroid. The spacecraft will enter orbit around Bennu on December 31st, thus making Bennu, which is only about 1,600 feet across, or about the length of 5 football fields, the smallest object ever orbited by a spacecraft. It's a critical step of OSIRIS-REx's years-long quest to collect and eventually deliver at least 2 ounces of regolith, dirt and rock, from Bennu to Earth. Starting in October, our OSIRIS-REx performed a series of braking maneuvers to show the spacecraft to slow it down as it approached Bennu. These maneuvers also targeted a trajectory to set up space maneuver, which initiates the first North Pole flyover and marks the spacecraft's arrival at Bennu. The OSIRIS-REx team is proud to cross another major milestone off our list, asteroid arrival, said Dante Loretta, OSIRIS-REx principal investigator at the University of Arizona, Tucson. Initial data from the approach phase show the subject to have exceptional scientific value. We can't wait to start our exploration of Bennu in earnest. We've been preparing for this moment for years, and we're ready. I think I will stop there and see if I can pull up the other article. Alright, here it is. Bringing balance to the universe. New theories that explain missing 95% of the cosmos. Scientists at the University of Oxford may have solved one of the biggest questions in modern physics, with the new paper unifying dark matter and energy and dismal phenomenon, a fluid which possesses negative mass. If you were to push a negative mass, it would accelerate towards you. This astonishing new theory may prove right, a prediction that Einstein made 100 years ago. Our current, widely recognized model universe, called Lambda CDM, tells us nothing about what dark matter and dark energy are like physically. We only know about them because of the gravitational effects they have on other observable matter. This new model, published today in Astronomy and Astrophysics by Dr. J.B. Barnes of the Oxford Research Center, Department of Engineering Science, offers a new explanation. Dr. Barnes says, "We now think that both dark matter and dark energy can be unified into a fluid which possesses a type of negative gravity, repelling all other material around them. Although this matter is peculiar to us, it suggests that our cosmos is symmetrical in both positive and negative qualities. The existence of negative matter had previously been ruled out, as it was thought this material would become less dense as the universe expands, which runs contrary to our observations that show dark energy does not thin out over time." However, Dr. Barnes' research applied a creation tensor, which allows for negative masses to be continuously created. It demonstrates that when more and more negative masses are continually bursting into existence, this negative mass fluid does not dilute during the expansion of the cosmos. In fact, the fluid appears to be identical to dark energy. Dr. Barnes' theory also provides the first direct predictions of the behavior of dark matter halos. Most galaxies are rotating so rapidly they could be tearing themselves apart, which suggests that an invisible halo of dark matter must be holding together. The new research published today features a computer simulation of the properties of negative mass, which predicts the formation of dark matter halos, just like the ones inferred by observations using modern radio techniques, the radio telescope. Albert Einstein provided the first hint of the dark universe exactly 100 years ago when he discovered a mere parameter in his equations known as the cosmological constant, which we now know to be synonymous with dark energy. Einstein famously called the cosmological constant his biggest blunder, although modern astrophysical observations prove that it is a real phenomenon. Dating back to 1918, Einstein described his cosmological constant, writing that a modification of the theory is required such that empty space takes the role of gravitating negative masses, which are distributed all over the interstellar space. It is therefore possible that Einstein himself predicted a negative mass-filled universe. Dr. Farn says previous approaches to combining dark energy and dark matter have attempted to modify Einstein's theory of general relativity, which has turned out to be incredibly challenging. This new approach takes two old ideas that are known to be comparable with Einstein's theory, negative masses and matter creation, and combines them together. The outcome seems rather beautiful. Dark energy and dark matter can be unified into a single substance with both effects being simply explainable as matter surfing on a sea of negative masses. Proof of Dr. Farn's theory will come from test performed with a cutting-edge radio telescope known as the Square Kilometer Array, an international endeavor to build the world's largest telescope in which the University of Oxford is collaborating. Dr. Florence adds, there's still more theoretical issues and computational simulations to work through, and Lambda CDM has a nearly 30-year head start, but I'm looking forward to seeing whether this new extended version of Lambda CDM can accurately match other observational evidence of our cosmology. If real, it would suggest that existing 95% of the cosmos had an aesthetic solution. We had forgotten to include a simple minus sign. Both from ScienceDaily.com, back to net, this is WB50ZL.
This is KE5ICX and net control for tonight. Skynet, boy, it's a lot of gremlins tonight. We got you, Brenda, a little bit of noise. Well, more than a little bit of noise, but that's okay. That's to be expected this evening. The Delta IV with the secret Air Force payload did not take off. There was a hold, well, not a hold, just I think it's a scrub at this point. I'm not listening to the audio, but it did not lift off. So no launch this evening. Let's see. Tony, NT5TM, just to let you know, your audio was really low on the last transmission, so hopefully you've got increased power or something on this one. You're next. Let's see what all happens. NT5TM, KG5ICX.
KG5P.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
The light's still on, Tom. They went into 11-minute hold, which is standard, and they just restarted the 4-minute countdowns. Again, restarted it, so it should launch in a few minutes. KG5P.
Hey, thanks, Mike. I wasn't sure. It just said 0000000. Usually they put an 11-minute hold, and they put it up there as 0011.00, but they didn't. Okay, thanks. I'm still watching earnestly to see what happens. Oh, okay, Tony, NT5TM, you're up.
I'll try to be louder. Just the circumstances, the birds are in bed and my other transmitters are all packed up, so I will do my best. Aside from the Delta IV launch that might be taking place in just under 60 seconds, we've had a couple of other good pieces of space news recently. China launched their Chang'e 4 lander to the far side of the moon. They've already got a communications satellite in place. This will be the first ever landing by a human project on the far side of the moon. Note, not the dark side. There is no dark side of the moon. All parts of the moon have darkness and day, except for a few craters near the poles. This lander will have both a rover and a stationary lander, and should do some pretty exciting science. So now the next link, I don't have the facilities to play this tonight. I might try that on another net. But if you go over to YouTube and you search for Sounds of Mars and Insight, you'll hear some neat sounds. It helps a lot if you can hook your computer up to some full-size speakers, something big, old hi-fis, or at least a good-sized subwoofer, because we're talking low pitches here, less than 60 hertz. On the InSight lander has not been deployed yet, but it is returning data, and of course it's not sensing Mars quakes, it's sensing the motion of the InSight lander itself. Well, what would make the lander move? It's stationary. The wind of Mars blowing over the solar panels. It sounds pretty familiar, really. It's a deep sound, and it's the sound of the wind of another world. Just go to YouTube, search for Sounds of Mars, InSight, or InSight Martian Wind, and you'll hear some pretty neat stuff. In space history, we've got some pretty neat stuff, too. December 2nd, 1974, was the date and year Pioneer 11 had its closest pass to Jupiter. Pioneer 10 and 11 were important probes. They quantified the radiation environment of the outer solar system. Without them, Voyager would have been fried. Pioneer 10 and 11 probes did make it past the edge of the outer solar system, although they are no longer returning data. They were tracked for a long time and even led to the interesting Pioneer anomaly. On December 3rd, 1999, I got a birthday present I didn't want. The Mars Polar Lander began to land, and then didn't. Space probes involved not testing the software. They knew there were some issues. The software was prone to mistaking vibrations in the probe for "I've landed," but they didn't really think it was worth fixing. They just sort of hoped it didn't happen. Well, when the landing legs deployed tens of meters above the surface, these space probes measured a vibration and thought, "Oh, I've landed," and cut off the engines and fell to the ground and went splat. That faster, cheaper, and better has a limit. Sometimes you can be too cheap. On 1999 and December 3rd, Hayabusa 2 was launched, the Peregrine Falcon 2. This is the spacecraft that is currently operational at the Dragon Palace. You know, Ryugu. It's deployed a number of small rovers to the surface of Ryugu. We are truly living in the age of science for asteroids and asteroid-like objects like Kuiper Belt objects. December 4th, 1965, Gemini 7 was launched. This was the fourth manned Gemini flight, the 12th manned American flight, and the 20th space flight by all of humanity. Frank Borman and Jim Lovell, names you hear later in connection with another space flight, spent almost 2 weeks in space. They wore special squishy spacesuits that turned out to be fairly uncomfortable, and they did something that scared the Soviets. They rendezvoused with Gemini 6A. The two spacecraft didn't just go whooshing past each other. They kept station. They took pictures. They waved. This was something the Soviets had not been able to do, and they've certainly not been able to do it under manual control of their spacecraft as the American astronauts did. 1996, Mars Pathfinder was launched. This was a successful mission launched on a Delta II, not a Delta IV, a month after the very successful Mars Global Surveyor was launched. Mars Pathfinder was important. It did some significant science, but mainly it was an engineering mission. Can we deploy a rover? Can the rover, 40 minutes by light time away from Earth, navigate around rocks? Can it do its work without us looking over its shoulder? Can we manage a mission this complex? And the answer to all those things was yes. Mars Pathfinder led the way for Curiosity, Opportunity, and Spirit, and the upcoming Mars 2020 rover. I've got a piece of news here that is completely bogus. It turned out that Encyclopedia Astronautica had a mistake. Astronaut 16 was not selected on December 5th, 1983. It was selected in May of 1996. So it's not part of this week in space history, although, well, being selected as an astronaut candidate is pretty impressive. I can mention that in 1992, on December 5th, NASA announced the selection of astronaut group 14 of both pilots and mission specialists. On December 7th, 1972, a day that shall live in scientific success, Apollo 17 was launched to the moon. This was the final crewed mission to the moon of the Apollo program, and so far, the final crewed mission to the moon launched by anyone. Eugene Cernan, Ron Evans, and Harrison Schmitt used the Apollo hardware for its original and full purpose, carrying scientific equipment to the moon. On the lunar surface, a long drive on a lunar roving vehicle, and extensive science, and the largest haul of moon rocks collected from any single mission. The landing site was chosen to sample aged lunar highland material from the dawn of the solar system and investigate whether the moon had had volcanic activity in recent times. I wish we'd been back since then, but unfortunately, December 7th was the last day a human launched to the moon, back in 1972. This is MT5TM, back to net.
Tony, great information, and I remember those missions. I'm getting old. This is KE5ICX and net control for tonight. Skynet! We'll go ahead and take additional check-ins. Looks like things are starting to clear up maybe a little bit. I'll take... If you would like to check in, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name and where you're transmitting from. We scared everybody off. Okay, let's see here. Let me go ahead. The Delta 4 is still sitting on the ground. I have to rely on folks on Echolink to tell me what's going on. It says here about T-minus 7 they held, and I think they're reset T-minus 4 if they restart. I don't know. It doesn't look real promising with everything at 000. See what happens. Okay, we are starting to get a little more favorable reflections coming out of Earth orbit on objects. So let me go here. The International Space Station does indeed, after a month hiatus, has at least has one good pass on December 17th. It's minus 3.5 magnitude. At 18:33, 6:33 our time out of the northwest, reaches its highest point at 18:36 at 68 degrees, then falls at 18:40. That's our lone ISS pass, passes through Cygnus, Aquarius, Phoenix, and then to the south east past Hydrus. Tiangong 2, which is the Chinese space station. I don't think it's been manned yet, but it is in orbit. It has a couple of passes. December 10th is the best one, 1.1 magnitude at 1906 in the evening out of the southwest. Reaches its highest point at 1909 at 59 degrees out of the southeast, then falls at 1910. The Hubble Space Telescope has several passes. Let me pick the best of these at this point. Looks like December 12th. December 12th will be our pass. December 12th. 1.2 magnitude at 1857 out of the southwest, reaches its highest point at 1901 at 51 degrees out of the south-southeast, and then falls at 1903. For second pass, this one's a good one. December 14th, 0.8 magnitude at 1836 out of the west-southwest, reaches its highest point at 1841 at 75 degrees, and then falls to the northwest at 1844. So let's take a closer look at that one. Let's see. Almost completely across the sky. This one goes through southwest, through Sagittarius, Capricornus, Aquarius, just swipes past Pisces, through Triangulum, and then Auriga. I think I got that right. The northeast at 1844 before it goes into shadow. All right, I'll go ahead and ask. Let's see, are there any questions this evening? Astronomical Q&A. You got something you want to ask us? We've got the best and the brightest here. Well, we've got the best. Well, we've got people here. So if you got a question you would like to ask about astronomy or space exploration, we'll figure it out or we'll lie to you. Either way. If you've got a question, we've got answers. I think that company's out of business. Anybody have any questions this evening or anything they would like to bring to the net, please come now.
G5P.
G5P, Mike, go ahead.
Okay, well, just a status update. If you're not watching the launch of the Delta IV, they were on 7 seconds to lift off. They'd already ignited the engine. You could see flames coming out of the thing, and then they shut it down, and they're back in a hold again.
Normal state.
Waiting another shot at it. Apparently they had a problem detected by the terminal countdown sequencer rack, whatever that is. So that's the update on that, but they still expect to get off with the sequencer they got in there. Weighs 62,000 pounds, or some crazy thing like that. So it's a big honker of a satellite. Nobody knows what it does. KG5P.
All right, Mike, thanks. These things are pretty spectacular when they take off. This particular rocket is amazing. Very complex, got a lot going on under the hood. So it's not a surprise that they would have a hold or a problem. Think about it. You've got two boosters, liquid LOX boosters, by the way. They're not solid. And then the center core, the rocket itself, is very complex, probably the most complex space shuttle that we've had in quite a long time. So the fact that they may have an issue with it is both not surprising, and the fact that they might be cautious is also not surprising. So probably what will happen is that if this thing gets recycled, it'll be about the same time tomorrow night. So if they cannot resolve this, I don't know. The thing is that there's no real couplers involved outside of the fact that they want to put this thing into a particular orbit, a polar orbit, which is what I'm assuming. They can launch this thing at any time, although they generally follow the same path each and every night until they launch the thing to get all of the standard arcs and look that you would get in the evening. So it's more of a human thing than it is a rocket thing.
In 5 BB. Support. They went into the staging condition about 8 minutes ago, disabling the launch, let's put it that way. So they scrubbed the launch today. They're detanking the cryogenic propellants right now, and they have not yet set a new launch date. They had a problem earlier with one of their sequencers not looking like it was working right, and they scrubbed the whole thing was stopped at T-7 originally, right after they started, I think, the first engine. Evidently, they start the engines in a certain sequence. They're not all started at the same time. After I guess the first engine was started or something. That's all I can tell for now. Don't watch tonight. In 5 BB.
All right, Bill, thank you, and thanks for the update. Appreciate everybody's comments this evening. Okay, I'm just going to close it out at this point. We've got another net coming up here in just a minute. I want to thank everybody who checked in. We had 17. It's a new low! Oh, no! Probably because of the terrible audio this evening, but I still want to thank everybody who checked in this evening. And let's see here. Where am I? Let's see. The DRC Skynet is net dedicated to the discussion of the daytime and nighttime sky. Wrong part. Here we go. We hope you join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration on this net. The sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. We'll be doing some reshufflings beginning in January, so if you'd like to be part of this is the time. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact one of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics, discussion about this net, astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video feeds, our video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Till next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray Tom, and I'll be closing tonight's net at 22:32 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use, at least for 5 minutes. Come back in about 5 minutes, and we'll be talking about The Day the Earth Caught Fire, movie from 1961. Surprisingly good. See you then. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear.
I'll have to go to bed early for the next so I'll miss the next, but I'll watch the 5 p.m.
Oh, Tony, you're fading again.
I'm on an AT. I'm going to get ready for bed. Good night. I have to miss the net.
I was hoping for your intellectual comments on this one. All right, have a good evening. You probably got to go to the thing tomorrow morning. All right, 7-3. That may be why we don't have as many folks this evening, is because they got to get up early. I don't, but I'll watch it on TV. 7-3. See you later, Tony. NT5TM from KE5ICX. Give me a minute to reset here. This is KE5ICX. This is KE5ICX. Anybody need to use the repeater before we begin the Afterglow movie net? We'll begin. This is KE5ICX. Brenda normally would have this net tonight, but the audio, the transmission is kind of iffy this evening, so if I'm less iffy, I'll take it tonight. She gets to do Christmas. Lucky devil. Let's see here. Tonight's movie is Mike, KG5P. Picked this one out. I think it's a keeper. It's called The Day the Earth Caught Fire. It was a British science fiction disaster film, but not in the way that you're thinking. It stars Edward Judd, Leo McKern, which is a favorite actor of mine, Janet Monroe. It was directed by Val Guest and released in 1961. It's one of the classic apocalyptic films of the era. Film opened at Odeon Marble Arch in London on November 23rd, 1961. Here's the very brief plot as listed on Wikipedia. It says a lone man walks through sweltering streets of deserted London. The film then goes back several months. Peter Stenning had been an up-and-coming journalist with the Daily Express, but since a divorce threw his life into disarray, he's been drinking too much. One of his lines is, "Alcoholics of the press unite," and his work has suffered. His editor, Christensen, has begun giving him lousy assignments. Stenning's only friend, Bill McGuire, is a veteran Fleet Street reporter, and there's a meeting to the Fleet Street reporter part, who offers him encouragement and occasionally covers for him writing his copy. Meanwhile, after the Soviet Union and the United States accidentally detonate simultaneous nuclear bomb tests, strange meteorological events begin to affect the globe. Stenning is sent to the British Met Office to obtain temperature data, and while he's there, he meets Jeannie, a young typist who is temporarily acting as a telephonist. That means switchboard operator. They meet cute, trading insults later, and then they fall in love. He then discovers that the weapons test has been a massive effect on Earth. He asks Jeannie to help him get any relevant information. It becomes clear that Earth's nutation has been altered by 11 degrees, altering the climatic zones and changing the pole and the equator. The increasing heat has caused water to evaporate and mist to cover Britain. Later, it is also revealed that the orbit of the Earth has been disrupted and spiraling in towards the sun. The government imposes a state of emergency and starts rationing water and supplies. People start evacuating the cities. Scientists conclude that the only way to bring Earth back to a safe orbit is to detonate a series of nuclear bombs in western Siberia. Stenning, McGuire, and Jeannie gather at a bar to listen to a radio broadcast of the event. Bombs are detonated, and 30 seconds later, the shock wave causes dust to fall from the bar ceiling. Two versions of the newspaper's front page have been prepared. One reads, World Safe, the other, World Doom. The film ends without revealing which one will be published. Tonight's movie we're discussing is The Day the Earth Caught Fire. This is an English film from 1961. And I will be honest with you, I had never heard of this film until a couple of weeks ago, and it has rapidly, almost instantaneously, become a favorite. And I'll tell you why when it's my turn. I'll go ahead and take check-ins this evening. If you were listening in, remember that the repeater is not up to snuff, so you may have to increase power a little bit or improve your position, or both. Either way, anyway, I'll need you to do that. So if you're interested in checking in, please come now with your call sign name. And let me know, did you see The Day the Earth Caught Fire? Please come now.
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu, November, Juliet, Frank in Flower Mound, and yes, I saw the movie.
November, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving. Yes, I did see the movie.
Golf 5, Papa, Mike and Richardson. Yes, I did see the movie. Actually, I've seen it several times. KG5B.
Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto. Yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn and Louisville, and I did see the movie.
Okay, let me get those check-ins. I've got KG5Z, November, Juliet. Frank in Flower Mound. Yep, you saw the movie. N5BB, Bill and Irving. Yep. KG5P, Mike and Richardson. Yep. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda DeSoto. Yep. And KC5OZT, Miss Carolyn Louisville, my neighbor up the street here. Yep, she saw the movie. Any additional check-ins? You don't necessarily have to see the movie. We're going to be talking about disaster films for sure. So if you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign, your name, location, did you see the movie? Please come now. We'll now go to Echolink. Echolink has the brain power and the wherewithal. You guys, gals, let me know. Echolink, please come in with your call sign, your name, location. Let me know if you saw the movie. Echolink only. Please come now.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman. I did not see the film.
I've got AFI-PDS, Miss Billy, and she did not see the movie. All right, Billy, I'm going to keep you in the rotation until you tell me no. Either way, no, you can stay in the rotation the entire time. I'm just going to put you on the list. Okay, E5ICX, that's me. I'm at the end of this thing. Okay, let's start at the top. KG5ZNY, Frank. Think about this for a minute. Yeah, and you probably, and I know you know the routine. First thing we're going to discuss is the plot for the movie. How was it? Did it work out? Did it work for you? And then our second round after that, of course, will be our characterizations. Did the characters really live up to the whole thing? And then after that, and I think we're going to have plenty of time with a short list this evening, I think because of the Dallas Marathon. We'll have an opportunity to go into the technical aspects of the film and anything else that anybody wants to talk about. So, first on the list is KG5ZNJ. That's Frank. What did you think about the plot, Frank?
This is KG5ZNJ. Well, I liked this movie quite a lot, but part of it is because, I'm from Canada and I grew up with a healthy dose, or maybe unhealthy dose of British cinema, and it has all the classics of British cinema. The black and white era lasted a few decades longer than it did in the U.S., so you have a lot of really good black and white movies from the 60s. This is one of these classic movies with the theme of man has split one too many atoms. And, that's what it's all about. So I really liked the pre-disaster backstory. I thought it was really well done. It was very immersive. It was, you really got a feel for early 60s post-war England. A lot of nitty-gritty realistic scenes in workplaces and, when he went to the fair and on the street and in the pub. So it was really cool. It was almost like a historical thing, It just gets you right in the daily life. So it was very realistic, and I like that part of it. For me, it was super nostalgic in a weird way, and, I've been working, 30, 35 years old, and when I started my career, I started in federal government in Canada, and the offices, I'm just of that age when I went in, still a student doing co-op placements, as they called it. It was a world where there was no computers on the desk. It was all typewriters. And that really gave me memories of, you walk through an office and there's typewriters going and the dinging, the carriage returns, and then the old Bell telephones. They had the really old ones, and then they had the ones that you still saw in the 80s, and I thought that was awesome. People writing memos, paper memos. There's no email. They had mail carts. They had vacuum tubes, not the radio vacuum tubes, but the tubes that sent the memos to the mail departments on the various floors of the building, and then you'd have guys on the carts pushing the carts around. And I did that when I was young. I did the mail cart thing, so I really enjoyed the office scenes, and people smoking at their desks. They still did that when I came in, and that was on the way out, but they still did it. And people with booze in their filing cabinets, lots of filing cabinets. I think I had about 7 filing cabinets. So super nostalgic for me, even though that, my time was after that. But I caught the tail end of it when I was very young. It was awesome. I liked the references of the sunspots and the radio propagation that was in there. And I always like when the movies have the radio stuff. So on to the disaster. Well, I learned in short order that H-bomb detonations, let me reset, can tweak the Earth's tilt, cause surprise lunar eclipses, fog, cyclones, hurricanes, and they can melt the ice caps and put a third of the planet in the fog. So not only can man completely throw global climate into a never heard that before. He can also knock the planet out of orbit and force the Earth into a collision with the sun. And apart from all that, it can also cause one other thing, thrombosis. They must have said that damn word 20 times in the movie, anyway. And I didn't like the part about 147 degrees in Texas. That sucked. But I really did like this plot. I thought it was fun. The science is obviously very corny, but it was still fun, and it was work. It worked. And Tom, you're a sneaky guy. You're a trickster. You're linking movies with themes, and this theme was the same as Space 1999, blowing the moon out of orbit while the Earth was blown out of orbit. So I like this movie, and that's all I got to say right now. Back to you, Net Control.
Mike. You provided a lot of information, some of the things that I wanted to talk about. That's cool because I agree with you 1,000% on everything that you said. Fanboy I am on that one, and this movie really resonated with me quite a bit. But I'll save my comments for last. N5BB, Mr. Bill and Irving, you saw the movie. What'd you think of the plot?
Yes, this is N5BB. I did see the movie. I agree with everything that's been said so far. The science was corny, and a lot of things were nonsensical, but I still liked the plot. So the things that were corny, science-wise, was this time of the year we get more sunspots. Well, there aren't more sunspots some time of the year. There's sunspots. Besides the time of the solar cycle, but not the time of the year. And there was static due to sunspots. Well, there really isn't static due to sunspots. A lot of things are crazy. The temperature, did you hear the temperature report? 141.3 Fahrenheit in Texas. Man, everybody would be dead. Completely dead if it was that high. Also, the whole idea of the nuclear explosion rotating the Earth by that much was just completely ludicrous. And they knew that. It was just a plot device. And of course, this was, the movie came out in 61, the middle of the Cold War, the nuclear things, the Cuban Missile Crisis was coming up, and all that kind of stuff was occurring. And it was a tough time when the nuclear war was a real danger. As far as plot things, I thought it was very silly that they had that rioting in the street by the kids. And one very interesting thing, if you look right at the start of the movie and the credits, the beatnik music, that's right, beatnik music was by Monty Norman. Did you notice the beatnik music? Oh, well, again, good movie. I like Leo McKern was the country old reporter of the science team, kind of studied all the science things. And I thought that plot-wise that the love affair between Peter Simmons and Jenny Craig was done very well. It was kind of a steamy movie. By the way, so anyway, we'll talk about other things later in 5BB.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate your comments, and I know you got more to come. KG5P, Mike, you picked this film. You're to blame. I liked it. Go ahead, Mike, KG5P from KG5ICX.
All right, KG5ICX, KG5P. Yeah, I saw this movie, I guess it must have been in junior high school or something like that. And I saw it at the theater. It was one of these 35-cent, back when the day you can go to the theater for 35 cents. And, I liked it. I didn't remember much about it until I saw it, watched it again. I'll second to what Bill and some of the others have said. I mean, the science was just ludicrous. There's so many things wrong with this movie. It's like Space 1999. Well, not quite that bad. But if you look in some of these the commentary on it, they'll talk about you mentioned the word mutation. No, absolutely not. No, mutation is something. First of all, what it changed was the like the angle the Earth orbits at. You know, its angle of rotation is compared to the plane. Like we have 23.5 degrees right now, and so it's changed it by 11 degrees. But that's not the nutation. There is such a thing as nutation, but that's something else. It has nothing to do with this. But they really didn't dwell on that in the movie. It's these other writers that wrote the synopses that don't know what they're talking about. Okay, well, first it changed the angle of rotation by 11 degrees, and then later they found out that it knocked the Earth out of its orbit and it was falling into the sun. Well, to do that is impossible with a couple of nuclear bombs. In fact, when we talk about Space 1999, there was a webpage out there, and I won't get into all the details, but basically explained what it would take to knock the moon out of its orbit. And it would take many multiples of 10. Much energy to do that with the moon. And the Earth is 6 times more massive as the moon, so it just doesn't work. And when I read that thing, I won't get into details, I don't even remember, but as a physics student, it made sense to me. It's just crazy. And then, to make things worse, they reversed the process by blowing up another couple nuclear bombs in Siberia or something like that, and that blew everything else, that knocked everything back to normal. Now suppose they even could set out a bomb to do that. What would be the probability that would make everything back to normal again? I mean, they took extreme liberties with science, but I didn't quite understand that when I was 15 years old, or however old I was when I saw it. But it's got to stop somewhere. Americans, I guess, are stupid enough they'll believe anything if enough people tell them enough times. Another thing about the plot that I didn't like was they talked about this case of typhus was running rampant. No, not. It's not typhus, it's typhoid. They're two different things. Typhus is a disease that's spread by a vector like fleas and stuff like that. Typhoid is what you get from dirty water, ingesting dirty water. So they didn't even differentiate between typhus and typhoid. So somebody really slipped up there. Another thing that was kind of amusing was that Edward Judd, the movie was sort of done in a flashback, and it started out with Edward Judd knocking out the story, and his typewriter jammed up. So then he's got to call somebody else, and the telephone still works, and he has to dictate the story. I mean, he's working in a newspaper office, and they only have one typewriter in the whole office. Yeah, I find that, one typewriter and happen to jam up. There's no others in a newspaper office. Okay. The beatnik music, yeah, I didn't get that either. It sounded to me more like New Orleans jazz. I don't know, beatnik music is supposed to have Maynard G. Krebs and bongo drums or something like that. Other than that, it was an interesting story. It's just that the science didn't work at all. But if you don't care about that, you probably would like it. And I did like the plot in general. I guess it was because I liked it when I was a kid. So back to Net, KG5P.
Thank you, Mike. And this is KE5ICX, and we are discussing the movie The Day the Earth Caught Fire, a film from 1961. English film, one of the very first post-apocalyptic films. So let's see, next on the list, and if you have seen it or would like to discuss it, I will get you at the end of the list here. Next up, WB5OZL, Miss Brenda and DeSoto. Your thoughts on the plot?
This is WB5OZL. I thought the plot was really good. It was coherent. And something we see so much of in these old sci-fi movies is plot holes and things that seem out of sequence and that don't make any sense at all. And while the science in this was abhorrent, admittedly, it is science fiction. But I thought the story held together, and you understood what was going on and what was happening, and I liked that. I thought it was just very coherent. I don't think there is such a thing as beatnik music. Beatniks made music, but that's not really a genre, and I kept listening for it, and I just thought that was a little bit funny, too. I liked that the woman wasn't a simpering, helpless thing like so many of these movies have. The romance in so many of these is just some sickening thing that's right out of the 50s and 60s, but I thought this was a lot more sophisticated. I liked the snappy dialogue. It moved along at a good clip, and you had to pay attention, and they used big words, and they didn't talk down to you, and they didn't try to explain too much. And I especially liked the peek into the world of newspapers, which is very fascinating. And this was actually shot in a newspaper. So I like that. All right, I'll stop. WB5OZL.
Thank you, Miss Brenda. Next up, KC5OZT, Miss Carolyn, your thoughts on the plot?
I liked the movie, and I liked the plot, and I have to admit the science flaws, so to speak, that people have mentioned, but one thing that struck me was there was a lot of, you might say, personal relationship interaction. Okay, the reporter and his son that he only got to see sometimes, and of course, him and his girlfriend, But there was a lot of human interaction, maybe just for a scene, That, and then the final, where they were waiting for the final blast, That was very touching. But, and then of course, he was out he went on out and not knowing whether it was going to work or not, and he heard Big Ben, and that was I think that might have been the shot that got me the most, was him looking up to the top of Big Ben and seeing the cross, and you're still not knowing which way it'll go, and then all of a sudden it just goes black, like it'll be decided by maybe divine intervention or something. But there was a lot of little, in between the personal relationships and everything that really added a lot to the movie to me. KC5OZT.
Thank you, Miss Carolyn, and good points. KF5 PDS, Miss Billy, your thoughts on plot?
Well, good evening. Well, I did not see the film, but yeah, it sounds like they were trying to pull in some cool science, and it makes me want to watch the film. I love films that have kind of a time warp effect. When they go back, you know, you can see the world as it was at certain periods of time, and yeah, it makes me reminisce about my first office days and things like that. About hearing, like you said, the typewriters and sounds and everything, because I remember offices like that. We had a computer in our office. It was a mainframe computer, but we also had typewriters and still did quite a bit of business on a typewriter. So that's really cool to tie in. And looking up the information about nutation, you change the tilt of the Earth's axis, and that will change the precession, which is the circular trace of the axis of rotation. And you can think of like if you start a gyroscope, and as it starts to wind down, you will see it wobble, and that's the precession. And inside of the precession is a more short-term, what they refer to as a nodding motion, which is the nutation. And so if you look up close at the circular path of the precession, it will have an even smaller nodding motion to it, and that's the nutation. And I was reading about it, and the nutation of the Earth is 18.6 years, which matches the precession, the nodal precession of the Moon. So I thought that was really interesting. So it seems to me like if you were to change, obviously the axis of rotation, that would definitely change the precession, which is a more long-term motion. The current precession of the Earth is about 26,000 years. So if you tilt the Earth's axis 11 degrees, that's definitely going to have a marked change on the precession, but it's still going to be, I think, a large time frame to notice. And I'm not sure, I don't know the equations of what that effect would have on the nutation, but they may have just been going for a cool term that not a lot of people were familiar with, and said, yeah, let's use nutation because it sounds neat. But all those things are linked together, but being that the nutation of the Earth linked with precession of the Moon, seems like more would have to go on to really affect the nutation. I could be wrong. Anybody who knows more about it could certainly chime in, but I just found that just a cursory read while the net was going on. Those were some things that I looked up and observed, so just wanted to throw that in. If there's anything else that comes to mind as we go through the net, please keep calling on me, and I'll try to make some relevant comments, but I'll enjoy listening to everybody's comments about the movie. So I'll throw it back to you. This is KF5PDS, back to net.
Thank you, Miss Billy. Wow, really interesting stuff. I don't know what to say. With all the different precession and nutation and all of that, I thought that was very interesting, and that was brought up as the science part of this thing. But you got the science down excellent. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and check in N5IMS, JJ over in Carrollton. I'm going to go ahead and give my comments on this film. I was really surprised at how good this film was. The science part sucked. Yes, it wasn't exactly accurate when it comes to the astronomical, the Keplerian parts of everything in this film were very space 1999-ish. But where it departs significantly from, say, that same idea is that the characterization was excellent. The plot was very interesting. What I love about this film is that we didn't go off with prime minister, the president of the United States running the show, or the military saying, well, fire missiles, we're going to do this, we're going to do that on a high level. This had to do with a newspaper on Fleet Street. Fleet Street was the place where all the newspapers were in England. It was the main drag into London proper. It was this difference between the old medieval London and the outside or the outskirts of town. This was a very significant and central part of London, very similar to, say, technology being in Silicon Valley. This was the literature or the newspaper world right there in the middle of it. That alone was really cool. And then I did some research on it too, and the fact that the pubs, the bars around the area, and the fact that people would gather there, all of the newspaper guys would end up there. That truly was a part of it, and still is to a certain extent even today, even though the newspapers and the media have dispersed a little bit. It's still there. It's still there. I thought that was really important, and the fact that that was the story gravitas had nothing to do with all of the great thinkers, all the great people trying to make all the decisions. It had to do with the newspaper acting and reacting, and then the individuals in all of this acting and reacting to what they learned along the way, many of them having more information than the people around them. That was really cool to me. I thought that was fascinating. And then the response, what do people do? Let me read that. The thing is that the general public is not as well informed. It has to go through the press in this case, and they have to kind of boil it down. But the press gets way more information than the general public does. They do the best they can to try to explain things, but the public just digests it and does the best job they can. And here we have an instance where they react in weird ways. Some of them, wow, this is just the way it is. It's 1961. It's just the way it is. We have to deal with it. Another one is, as Frank said, splitting the atom. Well, we've got to stop this. This is exactly what we thought it would be. And then you have the younger generation, which is and they have the peace sign and everything else. In 1961, that didn't become a normal thing, and as far as the whole thing, until later on. And they just say, wow, to hell with it all, and they go crazy and do whatever they want. And during a drought, they use up all the water. Well, what does that mean in the end? They're rebellious? This was a predictor of things to come in a lot of ways. I thought the story was fascinating and how they were able to construct and make this thing happen. Another thing that was really amazing was the whole setup. The whole setup was fascinating. Our main character is walking down in a street that is completely out of control. This reminded me of an episode of The Twilight Zone. The Pantone, the colors that were used in this black and white film, they gave it this hue to the whole thing that suggested it was out of the ordinary, and they used this cinemascope-like look to the thing, which was unusual then, particularly for a black and white film. It just looked epic and large and capable. Really cool. And then all of a sudden we go to the standard black and white with the large widescreen, but saying, okay, this is normal, this is abnormal, and it ends with that. I just thought it was very innovative. It had a lot going for it as far as the storyline was concerned. The characters were more important than the whole overall story, but in the end, the story kind of just overtakes everybody in the film, and there's somewhat of a reserve at the end. The more and more I think about this film, the more and more I like it. And having never heard of it until just, last week or 2 weeks ago, I think it's really cool. It's in my top 10 SF films because it's so well done. So I'm going to stop there. This is KE5ICX. I'm going to go ahead and check in N5IMS. JJ, he didn't see the film, but if you want anything you want to say, by all means do so. JJ will get you in. Does anyone else want to check in? Tonight's movie is The Day the Earth Caught Fire from 1961, a British science fiction disaster film, one of the first. Anybody like to check in? Whether you saw or didn't see the movie, that's okay. Tell us you are here. Go ahead. There is a breaking station. We are challenged this evening. We need you to increase power. That's kind of been that way this evening, probably because of all the rain we've had. If you can increase power a little bit, I'd appreciate it. We'll get you in, I hope. That breaking station, try one more time. Anyone get him on reverse? He's about 90% noise. Okay, the breaking station once again. I am so sorry. I would love to hear your comments. I'll give you a few extra seconds here to figure it out. If you could increase power a little bit more. The repeater, I think, was infiltrated by water today, so it's not up to 100%. It's more like about 60%, which means you're going to have to compensate. It's not you. It is the fact that the repeater isn't hearing as well as it normally would. So if you try one more time, increase power, and I will listen for you.
Oscar. Go ahead.
I got you that time. W5 Zulu Oscar. Go ahead. You've got any comments to your name and where you're transmitting from. And I am turning the radio up to 11 so I can hear you.
Yes, sir. 5 Zulu Oscar transmitting. Go ahead. Had no comments. I was just commenting on your head.
Well, very good. I've got you checked in. I did hear you that time. We are having challenge. We've got a challenged repeater this evening, so hopefully it'll all dry out. This is one of those things. It's called amateur radio for a reason. Everything doesn't work perfectly every single time. But thank you for checking in. And if you get a chance, go watch this film. It was really, really interesting. Okay, I'm going to go to the top of the list again. This time, KG5ZNJ, Frank, over in Flower Mound. Your comments on plot. What do you think? Go ahead, Frank.
KG5ZNJ, are we switching to character development now? Well, back to you just for a second.
Oh dear, I did it again. I did that last week. Yes, we're talking about characterization. Go ahead.
Roger that. That's KG5ZNJ. After watching this movie now, I'm kind of getting a little paranoid. I think maybe somebody split one atom too many and maybe caused a division by zero, and maybe there's a little tiny black hole that's been spawned, and that's what's sucking up the radio waves here tonight. On to character development. Well, really, really good acting all around. and it was surprising. It kind of unexpected. You're expecting an old bad black and white movie, and the science obviously throws you off because it's so bad. But the acting and the dialogue especially was awesome. A lot of rapid fire back and forth interaction between the people. Some really good expressions that they use. Very, very clever writing. Stellar character interaction and very, very witty comebacks. Like, you could watch this movie 10 times and you still won't catch it all. So it's really, really stellar for that stuff. I really liked it. It was great. What else? I mean, I liked that it was, the way the characters interacted was realistic. Like, you have the main character, the reporter, and he's having troubles in life. You know, he's got a divorce. He's, taking his kids to the fair, like a visit. And he's also having job burnout. And the interaction he had with his peers at work, and especially his boss or bosses, was really good. Like, he's just very angry and very short with people and getting pissed off. It was good. It was really good. What else? The love interest part of the story was also really good and unexpected. And, really good dialogue. It was good. And it was racy, too. I mean, really racy for those years. So that's very surprising. There's some good cameos in this movie. Probably most people notice Michael Caine is in there before he's famous, and he was the police officer near the end at the riots. And there's no mistaking him. He has a very distinct voice, and that was very cool. The other cameo that is not written anywhere, and I noticed it, and I'm probably the only one, but maybe one of you people caught it, is a very young teenage guy named Eric Idle, who became famous in Monty Python after probably 10 years after this. And he is the teenager who's in the line at the water rationing, and he starts an argument. And that voice is very distinctive. He has a very distinctive voice, and I believe that's 100% him, because he's got a unique voice. And if you look at him, it's him when he's like about 17 or 18 years old. So I did a little bit of research on that. Couldn't find anything credit-wise, but I did find out that Eric was in school then, and he was doing drama very heavily, and that he was very active in those years as an anti-nuclear protester in London, and he was always going there and taking part in it. And if you saw a lot of the scenes in those movies, they had film footage of nuclear protesters happening at the time. So I'm pretty sure I've convinced myself that it's him. So that was really cool. What else? I think that's about all I have. I just love the character part of this movie. That's what made this movie really good. So it's KG5ZNJ. Back to net control.
Good. Thank you, Frank. Very good points, and I will pursue that as well as far as Eric Idle's concerned. Very interesting. It probably was. I will say this, and then I will move on very quickly, and that is there's a lot of uncredited folks in many movies who end up being big stars or recognizable in cinema, and they don't, sometimes they remember they were in these films. They kind of end up in them and doing things. I remember, who was it? Harrison Ford was in The Conversation, which is a movie by Francis Ford Coppola, I think it was. I'm going by memory, in 1969. He has no lines, and you see him walk in, and he does his thing, and he leaves, and he's never mentioned that as a movie that he was in, as far as I know. Next up, N5BB, Bill. What did you think of characterization in this film? Go ahead, Bill.
This is N5BB. I agree with the comments so far. I thought the characters were done very well. I thought the actors very realistic. It had very good wood-on-wood relationships. I mean, even the ones that were the secondary actors, like the head editor there in the newspaper, I thought he did a great job. Very realistic, both physically, his movements, and he talked and everything. What else? Let's see. I also thought the interactions with Jenny and with Peter were very, very good. I thought they was all done very reasonably. So, try to think what else to say about that. Oh, by the way, I did a little search, and yes, I see that Michael Caine, I found a reference to him associated with the movie. But I haven't yet found one with Eric Idle, but I don't disagree with you. But I haven't found anything where somebody described that on the internet. But I have seen Michael Caine listed as a cast member of this movie. Guess that's all I got. Oh, and it was kind of interesting to see Leo McKern and Bill McGuire years before the things I'm familiar with him. Some of the British television comedies from a decade or 10 to 20 years later. But I thought he did a good job in this movie. At 5EV.
Good, thank you, Bill. Next up, KG5P, Mike over in Richardson. What did you think of the characterization? Good.
Okay, thanks, KG5P. Well, I was going to mention Michael Caine, but somebody beat me to it. But yeah, he was the policeman. I couldn't find Eric Idle anywhere. I looked on IMDb and I looked on Wikipedia, and I didn't see him in anything, at least of note, before about 1966. This movie was, 61, so it would have been a number of years earlier, although he could have, because he was a student there, but I certainly didn't recognize him. The part I did like about this movie was some of the actors and the characterization. For instance, Leo McKern, who was mentioned, he's been in a lot of stuff. He was in whatever. He was number 2. The Prisoner, he was like number 2. That we did a while back. I remember him in The Man for All Seasons. That's probably one of the best movies ever made. If you haven't seen that, by all means, find a copy somewhere. It's about Sir Thomas More and Henry VIII and all that. And he's real easy to recognize because he played Cromwell. Now I don't know if it was Oliver Cromwell or there was another Cromwell, Thomas Cromwell. I don't really know which one he played, and I'm not that familiar with British history. But that's a great movie. He's really an Australian actor. And he lost his right eye in an accident when he was young. And in the movie, in this movie, there's one of his lines where he asks for somebody to get the melting point of everything from steel to my glass eye. And that was kind of an inside joke to himself because he did have a glass eye. One thing I was sort of confused about was they brought one of the government leaders on the radio, and they referred to him as the premier. And then later on, they brought in a government leader, and he was the prime minister. And I wasn't aware that Britain had a premier, like the Soviet Russian government. they had premieres like Khrushchev and Lenin and Stalin and all those guys were premieres. But I didn't think they called them that in the British parliamentary government form. I think they could have left out all this about the girl. I forget who she was. That played the guy that or something he was chasing after. He just wouldn't take no for an answer. I don't know, but I don't think she did that. Somebody called the cops on you. I don't think you could quite get away with that. And they could have kind of left it out to begin with. That whole love theme was kind of bogus. But, that's my opinion. Somebody mentioned it was a little bit racy. When they open the film, you'll see some kind of certificate from the British Cinema Sense Board, and I believe it was originally rated their version of rated X at the time. Although, like I said, I saw it in the American theater, and I was about 15 or something, so I was too young, so I couldn't really get an X-rated movie, but it wasn't considered X-rated in this country. I guess that's about all I had on my notes. Billy had a good explanation of the inclination of the axis, and that was what changed, which would say put London in the tropical zone, so that's why it got hot. Somebody mentioned 143 degrees in Texas. Well, one of the places I was at when I was in the Air Force was in Northern California, in the valley, up there in the Sacramento Valley, and it would get routinely in the summer 130 degrees on the flight line on top of all that concrete. So, but that's what it was. It just tipped the whole Earth's axis to what was now 50 degrees latitude would have been, if it was shifted by 11 degrees, it could have been, say, 39, which would make it about the same latitude as Denver. So, like I said, the science in this thing just didn't add up. I guess I've exhausted all the information I had here on the plot, so back to, or on the characterization too. So back to net, KG5P.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Next up, WB50ZL, Miss Brenda, your comments on characterization.
WB50ZL. Well, I thought characters were really well developed, and you had a good understanding about what motivated them, which you don't see in a lot of movies. You got appropriate amount of conflict. You got some heartbreak. This guy's dying because he can't see his kid, and you just feel so sorry for him. And now you've got lost people trying to find their way. A lot of it was stereotypical. The editor is exactly what you think an editor is going to be like. And they're just, I was pleased with the wide range of characters in this film. And the snappy dialogue was really good. It was well written. It was like something written for an intelligent adult, and which is refreshing. So many movies are just absolutely dumbed down, and you just almost can't bear it. Okay, I'll quit. WB50ZL.
Okay, thank you, Miss Brenda. This is KE5ICX. We're talking about tonight's movie is The Day Earth caught fire from 1961, talking about characterization. So let me move on to Miss Carolyn, KC5OZT. What you think of characterization?
Well, one thing, you could really get into these people's stories, even if it was just a brief contact or something. But one thing one scene that stood out was when he was saying goodbye to his son, and then to his ex-wife. And they get in the car, and then shakes hands, and with the new husband, trusting him to take care of his child. That was sort of, moving, and of course there was a lot of scenes with Jenny, that from getting acquainted and also protecting her from the mob, and then there are so many different scenes I can't remember all of them that where it struck you as being very poignant or sometimes sort of angry or something, but they put a lot of these in more than you normally see in a movie, I think. These one-on-one relations, good or bad or different kinds, But that really seemed to make the movie, KC5OZT.
Thank you, Miss Carolyn. This is KE5ICX. Let's see. KPDS, Miss Billy, you have any comments on, I don't know, characterization? Go ahead. Well, I know you didn't see the movie, but what do you think about post-apocalyptic characters? How about that? KFI-PDS from KE5ICX.
No, I don't have any comments this round. Yeah, being that I didn't see the film, I have no direct comments on the characterization, although I do enjoy the character actors. Leo McKern is a great character actor, and I think the Eric Idle comment was very interesting. It definitely makes me want to watch from hearing folks talk about the witty dialogue. I love good writing, and I love British humor because I grew up watching British comedies, so I love all the back and forth and quick comments and the British humor, so I would love to see the film. And the Eric Idle comment was interesting. It'd be cool to see if that was him, because I looked him up and I cross-referenced the movie and him and looked on his page, and nothing goes back that far on Eric Idle's page, so it is kind of an obscure thing. Maybe it was just some candid footage of him out at one of his protests and they decided to include it in the film. They may have grabbed an unscripted moment, and that would be cool to see, because he definitely is distinctive. He has a very distinctive look and voice. So if it is him, I'm sure it is, because there's usually no mistaking him for anyone else. So anyway, I don't really have anything else to say, so I'll just return it to you, and maybe on a future round I'll have something to say. So this is KFI-PDS, back to net.
Very good, Miss Billy, and if you get a chance, watch this film. I think you'll like it. Check the link out. This is natural, I think, for you. You would like this film. This is KE5ICX, and the characterization to me was fascinating. All the characters playing off of one another during a disaster thing. In every film I've ever seen with a disaster type core, the characters always take backseat to the storyline. And in this case, in true British fashion, when you do it correctly, the characters are more important. They represent something, the A-list of things to care about. What's going on with our protagonist? How does he handle things? And I love Leo McCarran as the science advisor, and he's just going, you know what? The world's spinning out of control. You're spinning out of control. I'm the only guy that really knows what's going on, and I got it figured out. I'm holding the glue together between the Earth itself and the people and you. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's a bit of sarcasm. It's a little bit of a British overt repressive thing going on because when you're British, at least back then, you try to refine yourself, keep yourself somewhat neutral, but that was changing at the time as the British Empire was starting to fall apart as an empire. The film has so many different directions it goes. The characters are trying to understand what's going on and how they're going to handle it. And in that whole thing, they have their individual lives and their reactions and actions going on. One of the things that I'm always deficient of and have a difficulty in expressing is the characters and how they act and react. What are their emotions and what are they doing? And so it's difficult for me to emote on that. It's easier for me to go ahead and talk about the special effects and this thing's in the wrong place and the roll patterns are wrong on this particular rocket and that sort of thing. The particulars are easy because they're easy to spot, easy to point out to others. The harder part is the characterizations and the environment and how this all works out. For me, it's one of those things where if you see it and you get it, you point it out. And sometimes there's not a huge explanation that goes along with it. This film is an A-list film for me, even though it's a B film. I love the way and the interaction between the characters in the story. They provide a bigger canvas than the whole idea of the end of the world. There have been plenty of movies that have done that, and they do it poorly. They do it with the artificial angst that goes along with it. These people don't have that angst. There is the... Let me reset. The real feeling that it's going to be the end of the world, and it comes about not in a realization, not pointing in the sky and saying, look, we're going to die. It comes as a realization over time, and each moment is addressed amongst each other, and they move forward with it each time until the inevitable end. Will they survive or will they not? And I think the movie does a really great job of saying it doesn't matter whether it happens or not. The end is not the end. It is getting there and how these people survive and do so in very curious ways. This thing should be done on a stage. It doesn't need anything around it. The story is all about the characters grappling with it over a period of time. I think that's really the interesting part. And that's why I think it's an A-list story to me. Okay, and that's a pretty poor rendering on my part, but I thought it was still pretty cool. This is KE5ICX, and we're talking about, what are we talking about? The day the Earth caught fire. We're going to go into the final round. If anybody has any comments or anybody would like to check in, now's your opportunity. Any final comments on this film? Technical character, plot, etc., etc., etc. Please come now with your call sign. I'm not sure. I'm going by the static. I think it's Whiskey 5 Zulu Oscar Oscar. I think you had a comment. Go ahead. I'll turn it up to 11 again.
Yes, sir. I have a comment there. Yes, sir.
It may have been another station. I'll try again. Try one more time. If you increase power, I'll go ahead and check you in or any comments. The repeater's not up to snuff this evening, so forgive me if I didn't acknowledge you correctly. Anyone else with additional comments, please come in. Hey, that's fine. This is KE5ICX, and we're going to close it out this evening. Just to remind everyone, or to let everyone know, next week's movie is, and randomly picked from like domain sources, Missile to the Moon from 1958. It'll be next week, Saturday night. Do I know anything about it? No, but I think there's a missile and it goes to the moon. If you would like to be included in what comes up next, you can always go to Facebook and Afterglow Movie. That's 2 words, Afterglow and Movie. You can sign up there. Or if you'd like to send an email to me, Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray, KE5ICX at yahoo.com, and say, hey, I'd like to be added to the email list. You can do that too, and I'll send you whatever next week's movie is. You can also suggest movies. If you see something out there that somebody would like to see, please do so. One of the limitations I've got is that it's sometimes hard to find a movie that everybody can watch, meaning that usually free and somehow available. I will put up, if everybody's interested, any sort of a pay-per-view type of film, but usually don't have as much participation. So if you've got that in mind, just keep that in the thing. That's important. Hey, here's the breaking station. Once again, I can barely hear you. If you could increase power, that would be a huge help or improved position. Try one more time.
I wish I could. Whiskey 5 Zulu Oscar Oscar.
Okay, I got you. Whiskey 5 Zulu Oscar Oscar. Go ahead.
Try to make contact.
I can hear you. You're about 80% noise, but I can pick you up. Go ahead with your comment.
I'm trying to make contact. Whiskey 5 Zulu Oscar Oscar. Try to make contact.
Go ahead and call your station.
Okay. Whiskey 5 Zulu Oscar Oscar. I can't make contact.
my apologies. Really hard to pick you out this evening, and if I was wrong in any comments back to you, I just can't quite pull you out. All right, I'm going to close it out this evening. Let's see, how many people did we have? It was a smaller group, but then we've got the Dallas Marathon tomorrow. We had 4, 8, 9 folks checking in, including N5 India Mike Sierra JJ. He didn't have any comments this evening. So a smaller than usual group, but don't forget, we'll be back next week, and we'll be talking about, what did I say, the missile... Oh, hell, I can't remember the movie. Here. Oh, here it is. Missile to the Moon from 1958. I want to say 7-3 to everybody. I enjoy the comments. This is my favorite net. I'll admit it because it's late at night. Nobody else knows any better. So 7-3, everybody, and thanks for checking in. We'll see you next week. This is KE5I6. I'm clear.
Capitol building.
Second Monday at 7 p.m., W5FC.
Time is 12:05 a.m.